Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of CantoSense. We're here to embrace Chinese culture for Christian living. We are embarking on the start of Hungry Ghost Festival. Now, this is a 2-week affair where, according to Chinese tradition, the King of Hell will release spirits for half a month and allow the ghosts to roam about on Earth. And after 2 weeks, they will all depart and go back to where they came from. During this time, they are roaming around the earth and they are looking for food. Humans who want to avoid being disturbed by these ghosts, they will try to appease them by putting out a very elaborate feast, quite a spread of fruits and rice and vegetables and meats and stuff. You might see it all along the roadsides, in the streets, in front of their houses. There might even be entertainment performances. Whatever it is that keeps these ghosts happy, that's what people traditionally will do. So the question we commonly hear from cultural Chinese Christians is whether we should be concerned about Hungry Ghost Festival, whether we should be concerned about the implications of the spiritual realm during these 2 weeks. But before we discuss it, maybe it's better to even start off by asking, what is the Chinese cultural understanding of ghosts to begin with? Never mind whether hungry or not, but how do they define ghosts? What are ghosts?
Well, cultural Chinese popularly believe that when one dies, your soul will leave your body. And that's when people call it a guai. And your soul might become virtuous, and therefore you become a kind guai, a good guai, who will bless and protect the living. Or you may become malevolent ghosts, which will cause trouble and do harm to the living. The Chinese also believe that the departed soul still requires food, housing, clothes, money, and these could be provided only by humans of the mortal realm who would deliver these things through ceremonial offerings.
That actually sounds a lot like Qingming, right? So is this sort of like the same, just another ancestral worship thing?
Yes and no. I think Qingming is specifically to honor and remember our family, our ancestors, and our loved ones. Whereas Hungry Ghost Festival is really for these spirits that are roaming out there. And often they believe that these hungry ghosts that are let out are spirits of people who have died a violent death or who have no family members to deliver them their material needs. So in that sense, it's different from Qingming. Hungry ghosts, we're really engaging ghosts that are roaming and free for that 14 days.
Okay, so coming back to the original question, then, you have these cultural Chinese people who grew up with traditions and understanding of these festivals and may have possibly believed that there is truth to them, then become a follower of Jesus. But yet some of these traditions still have really deep roots. And now they're concerned about whether I should be scared or maybe I should put a chicken on my doorstep. What's the proper understanding in terms of the spiritual realm?
That's a great question, because I actually had a professor who teaches at a local university here ask me exact same question. Should Christians be especially wary during this period? Should they be fearful when they go out at night? I think fundamentally we need to ask, is there such a thing as ghosts? When we think of ghosts, the common belief about them is that ghosts are spirits of deceased people, people who've died, who somehow coexist with the living here in the present world. And obviously, as followers of Jesus, we believe that there is a spiritual realm in reality. And what this means is spiritual beings do exist. But at the same time, the Bible is clear about what happens to a person after death. We read about how, as followers of Jesus, once we die, we go immediately into the presence of God. So these so-called ghosts are not spirits of people who have died. And scripture also reveals to us that demons are angels who sinned against God and who now continually work evil in the world. We read that in 2 Peter, we read that in Jude. So the manifestation of the so-called ghosts is really the work of the enemy in trying to instill fear, instill deception, where these demons would manifest what you already believe or are afraid of. So in other words, these are not spirits of people who have died, but rather these are actually demons who manifest themselves in a way to deceive you to think that they are spirits of people that you know who have died. Now, bear in mind, the devil is an intelligent and powerful spiritual being that is thoroughly evil, and he's directly involved in perpetuating and perpetrating evil in the lives of individuals, as well as on a larger scale. And so this suggests that the devil is the leader of a host of other powerful spirits who assist him in carrying out these destructive missions. But no matter how powerful the devil is, Jesus affirmed his disciples, as well as to us, our authority over the demonic realm. Jesus gave his disciples authority to trample on snakes and scorpions, and both snakes and scorpions are symbols of the demon. And we read in Luke that we can likewise appropriate Jesus's authority to overcome all the power of the enemy. So I think in view of what scripture teaches us as followers of Jesus, we must constantly be aware that there is a spiritual realm, that the devil is always up to something. We shouldn't be ignorant of the devil's scheme, but we shouldn't have an imbalanced view of the devil's influence. I think we make the mistake of seeing the devil's influence as either exaggerated or diminished. Either side is no good, but we need to have a balanced view. Back to the question, should Christians be especially wary during this period? Should we go out at night? There's no need for fear, because when we became followers of Jesus, he has given us authority to overcome all the power of Satan and of the enemy.
Based on what the scripture has told us, these 2 weeks, you shouldn't be any more concerned than you normally are, which normally you should be at least somewhat aware. The way you've explained the scriptural backing and explanation of all this, I think is so helpful, especially in discipleship contexts.
Yeah.
Whether you yourself are a cultural Chinese or not, but when you're discipling those who are cultural Chinese, especially those who are maybe first generation believers who come from a family that is much more traditional in their cultural beliefs, it's a very real struggle. And in discipleship, in spiritual formation, it's important that we understand what they are up against, what they're thinking through, what's going on in their head in a time like this.
Real fear, yeah,
is a real fear. So hopefully what we brought to discussion will help you in those conversations. We thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon on the next episode of CantoSense.